Make sure you mute your cell phones and call this meeting to order. All right, so we need a few things in order to have our town meeting. We need the duly signed warrant, which I have here. Is there any dissent to dispensing with the reading of the warrant? Okay, seeing none, then we will dispense with the reading of the warrant. It is attested by the Board of Selectmen as well as our Constable Carol Field on October 18th, 2020. We have quorum, we have our clerk, and we have myself, Keith Menard, as the moderator. So we also have non-resident members of town meeting. Those can be people who hold official office in our town but may not live in our town. And today, because of the couple of the articles, we also have people from out of town who will wish to speak on that article as they may be able to offer some insight to the meeting. Is there any dissent to allowing those people to speak? I'm sorry? Okay, there has been a dissent to allowing anyone who is not employed by the town to speak at today's meeting. There has been a second, so we will move this to a vote. All of those, let me just think of the best way to word this. All of those in favor, sorry?
I'll do an affirmative motion.
Yep, all those in, so let me, before I do all those in favor of allowing people to speak, please say aye. Does that work for you? Okay, so all of those in favor of allowing people who are here to assist the town meeting but may not be employed by the town to speak, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. No. The ayes clearly have it, and people will be allowed to speak. We have over here our Finance Committee. You guys can please stand. Those are the people who are responsible for making sure you all get the information bulletin and help to communicate what's going on today, as well as work with the town to present recommendations. Thank you very much for your service, as usual, to town meeting, as well as the town. And then we have the people who make town meeting possible. We have our checkers, Lisa Postma and Don Postma, our counters, Jennifer Larson and Dan Postma, as well as Ben Tessino, our constables, Carol Field and Ben Tessino, and our mic runners, Leah Menard and Caden Anima. So a little bit about how town meeting will be run if you haven't been here before. Motion will be made and seconded. At that point, so we've mixed things up a little bit. What we'll do is I will ask for a motion from the floor. There'll be a second. I'll ask if there's any questions or if anyone would like to speak on the article. If there's none, then I'll move to a vote right then and there. And if people do want to speak or ask questions on the articles, then we'll move back to the proponent's speech and take it from there. You get question and answer as well as debate. So please direct all questions and debate through the moderator. In other words, no cross-talking or asking each other questions. Everything comes through the moderator up here. After debate is exhausted or the question is called, which needs a second as well as a 2/3 vote, as well as must be recognized on the speaker's list. So you can't just yell, "Call the question." No, you actually have to be recognized and then say, "I call the question." Votes will be taken by unanimous consent, which I described a little bit earlier, where I'll say, is there a dissent to passing an article? If there is no dissent, then an article will consider passed unanimously. Voice vote, like what we just did, or a counted vote, in which case I would ask everyone to stand and display your registration card. So I already described the motion from the floor, where I would say as printed in the warrant. Any amendments must be in writing. They should be made after question and answer. In other words, during debate. You must be recognized to make the motion, and it must be deemed by the moderator to be within scope. The scope is defined solely by me, and it is basically the parameters of the discussion that we will be going over. Please keep in mind, while what we're doing is serious, it has both long and short-term impacts to all of us. We're all neighbors. Please be respectful and enjoy the process. It truly is a great one. Now, if everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Article 1. I'll accept the motion from the floor to move Article 1. Motion been made. Is there a second? Motion been made and seconded. Are there any questions on Article 1? Okay. Please wait for the mic. When the mic comes over, please stand and state your name, as well as your street address.
My name is Jared Connor. I reside at 825 Northwest Main Street. My question is just a preface to proposing an amendment. So I would like to also have the opportunity to propose an amendment. My question is, there's a line on here, increase Douglas Public School personnel and expenses. I believe from listening to a finance committee meeting that the sole purpose for that line item is to replenish a reserve fund for the public schools. I just want to confirm that that's in fact the purpose of those funds.
Okay. Courtney, would you like to answer that one? Liam, can we get a mic over here, please? Oh, sorry, Kate was right next to her, sorry.
Okay. To the town meeting attendees, we had requested a budget back in April, and just before the school committee meeting where we had our public budget hearing, our budget was reduced by $343,000. So we have been meeting over the summertime with the town to try to make some restitution to some dollar amount to that amount. Now we did have to, in order to, not lay off staff, we did have to get to the budget amount that we had for our public hearing, we are utilizing school choice funds. And the amount that was put forward was the amount that was in the warrant this evening. Okay, thank you.
Has your question been answered?
My question has been answered.
Okay.
I would like the opportunity to propose an amendment. I wasn't sure at the time.
Yep, not yet, but now that I know you want to do one, make sure you write it down, please. Okay, other questions? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on the article? Okay, whenever you're ready. Yep. Do you have it written down? Liam, hang on one second. Just give him a second. Yeah, so the way this is going to work is going to go ahead and hand you the mic back. You're going to state your name and address again and say, I propose to amend whatever you propose to amend, and then we'll see if we get a second. We'll go from there. Okay, and after you're done making the motion, if there's a second, then I would ask you to turn it in writing to the town clerk.
Certainly. Okay, so I propose an amendment to this article to delete the line, increase Douglas Public Schools personnel and expenses by $187,347. That's my amendment.
Okay. Motion been made. Is there a second?
Sorry.
Okay, so there's been a motion and a second. So you now, if you could please give the amendment to the town clerk, and then you can either come up to the podium and explain your rationale for the amendment, or you can go back and use the microphone that you had before. Yep, just the language itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, so the purpose of this amendment is just in my understanding of this amount to be appropriated to the public schools is just that, is to replenish a reserve. Apparently, again, school choice funds were made to make the budget whole, but there's, to my understanding, zero operational impact in this fiscal year to not providing these funds for this purpose. So in other words, the way I see it is this is almost like that checkbox where you get to ask, would I like to pay higher taxes? I usually don't check that box. And so this is a similar situation where we're increasing this appropriation, has no operational impact this year, and so I don't think we should do it. Thank you.
All right, so are there any questions on this amendment?
Ryan Hoganton, Knowing Way. I just want to clarify, our taxes aren't going up because of this increase. Or maybe that's my question. Are our taxes going up because of the, I don't know about this. Third tries a charm. Will our taxes decrease if this amount is deleted from the line item?
My understanding of how our property taxes are arrived at is that the total appropriation that this body approves, we vote appropriation, and then all other revenue sources are subtracted from that, and what falls at the bottom has to be raised by taxation. And so any article that we vote on that says raise and appropriate certainly can result in, and is likely to result in the increase of taxes. Now, whatever you raise and appropriate, if there are other revenue sources, that reduces the amount appropriated, but the amount that falls to property taxes. But once you've raised it, it's in there. So I would say, my answer to that is yes. If you use that language, raise and appropriate, then you are at least agreeing to have your property taxes increased for this purpose. If someone else has another funding source that you expect is going to come into play, that may be the case, but when we're voting to raise and appropriate, that says to me, we're willing to increase our property taxes for this purpose.
As with most financial questions, I will actually go ahead and ask our town accountant if they could expand on that a little bit more, please. Jean?
The short answer is he's correct. Any raise and appropriate article will increase the tax revenue. However, I would defer to the school department to state the need. Just like any of these line items here, there's a reason behind it. And we use both the fall town meeting to supplement the vote we've already taken at the annual town meeting to address the needs for the current fiscal year, in this case FY24. As the business manager has alluded to, there was a difference in numbers with the school department. We've worked over the summer to get to this number, and again, we're addressing the school department's needs as well as the other departments.
Other questions? Over here.
Hi, Joe, 254 Berry Street. So my question is, the gentleman who's speaking and the woman who just told us it wasn't what he was saying, is it true that it is not money needed and it's to do what he said, or is it actually money that's required to go forward? So is it money just to replenish as a backup, or is it money that's needed for this year?
Okay, so in other words, is it to replenish funds, or is it earmarked for something? Great. Courtney?
We were given a dollar amount from the town for our appropriation, which is what we built our budget on for the school committee budget public hearing. And we found out the day before that the number had changed, okay? So when we built our budget, it's for all our current staff. Okay, we had already cut $750,000 from our budget. So that's not even what we brought to the budget public hearing for the school committee. All those reductions had already taken place, okay? So what we ended up with just before the budget public hearing was a 0.84% increase for the entire school district. 0.84%. Just over $113,000 in an over $15 million budget, which doesn't cover any increases. I mean, it certainly doesn't cover any salaries. It doesn't cover, that $113,000 didn't even cover the textbooks for the school department.
Courtney, I'm gonna kind of bring you back. to the rails a little
So,
bit.
but what I'm trying to explain is this is not just extra money that we didn't need. This was already built into our budget. That's the number that we thought we were going to get. Actually, as I alluded when I first spoke earlier, it was actually $343,000 that was removed from our budget. So we're not even getting that full amount. So it's not a matter of just plugging reserves. We utilize school choice into a larger extent each year because the appropriation that we get from the town is a very small increase. But that being said, we do appreciate what we get. It's typically 2%. We got 0.84% this year. So we would not even be able to hang on to what we have, not even a level service budget. So as the Finance Director Town Account alluded, we also met over the summertime. This amount, and Ms. Lovett can confirm, is from new growth. It's new growth that they're utilizing to fund all of these articles, not just the school department, as she also indicated as well. Thank you.
Was your question answered? Thank you. Other questions? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on the amendment only? Okay, seeing none, go ahead and have a seat. So at this time, we'll be speaking on the amendment, which, if I can summarize correctly, is to eliminate the increase in Douglas Public School personnel and expenses of $187,347. So a yes vote will eliminate that increase. A no vote will put us back to the original motion. Does everyone understand where we are? Great. So all those in favor of eliminating the increase in Douglas Public Schools personnel and expenses of $187,347, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying no.
No.
The noes clearly have it. So we're back to the motion as originally presented. Are there any other questions on any of the items in Article 1? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on this article? Okay, also seeing none, all those in favor of passing Article 1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying no. The ayes clearly have it. All right, so now I'm actually going to ad-lib a little bit. Yeah, I know no one knows about this. I just kind of came up with this a few minutes ago. The next two articles seem to me to be, actually, so I will accept a motion from the floor to move Articles 2, 3, and 4 together. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Would anyone like to speak on either Articles 2, 3, or 4? Okay, almost had it. Right over here.
Thank you. Where is the additional funding being requested? Where's that coming from?
On which article, please?
Article 2.
And let me actually back you up. Name and address.
Sure.
Street is fine.
Sure, Ryan Orange Street. Additional funds requested for Article 2, right? You're requesting $125,000 additional funds. For,
Yep, all right, sorry. 1 second. Yeah, so it's to transfer from free cash and from the following previously approved projects, new sidewalk, financial software, and building vehicle, and let's see, and I believe that's it, is that correct? Yeah, I guess that would help. Yeah, so that's the funding sources right there. Gene, would you like to expand on that at all?
No, I think you have it.
Okay. All right, great. Other questions? Was your question answered? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Other questions on any of these articles? Okay, seeing right behind you.
Yeah. Joe, 254 Perry. So if I read this right, 435 was already approved. This should be looking for 80,000 more for the Article 2. Is that correct?
I'll be honest, I had a really hard time hearing that. Did you get it? No? Okay. Could you please repeat the question? And just bring the mic up a little closer.
Sure. Joe, previously approved projects is 435,000. Additional funds requested is 80,000 with another 45, 125 total. So this is addition to what's already approved? Is that what that is, Article 2? Yeah.
Please.
And that is correct. So we're transferring money from previously approved and closed projects for the 14,561.64, and then a transfer from free cash for the remainder for the 125,000. In addition to that, we are combining the municipal roofs so they're one project, no longer two separate ones.
Follow up? Go ahead.
So on the roof project for 80,000, is that because it didn't meet expectation of delivery, or is it going to be more after this? When is this project going to be finished?
Please.
It's with
Go ahead and introduce yourself first, please.
Mike Fitzpatrick, Southwest Main Street,
Oh, Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen. Oh,
Is that,
how about if I just talk louder?
have at it. Still nothing on that mic. So I think that's a dead channel. Yeah.
That'll be.
Yeah, give it a try.
Right, so you asked about the increase in the cost. When these were originally approved, it was back in 21 and 23. The estimates that came in from the architect are much higher than what they were originally anticipated to be. So that's what the recommendation from the architect puts us in at the price point where we are now. We're about $80,000 short.
So you've already had one follow-up.
I just didn't answer the whole question. My second part of the question was, will this be done on the 8,000? Is there a chance that it will override again? When is the expectation of the roof being done?
It's the RFP is going to go out for our proposals, but we needed to have the money in place before that could go out.
So you don't really have.
All right, no, we're not doing crosstalk.
You don't have it.
I think I answered this question.
No, you don't have it.
Okay, other questions?
Yeah. Okay.
We're not doing crosstalk.
Yeah. You won't use the money.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on the article? Articles. Okay, I'm seeing none. Is there any dissent to passing Articles 2, 3, and 4 unanimously? Seeing none, Articles 2, 3, and 4 pass unanimously. Excuse me for 1 second. Matt Wojcik, are you out there?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, I just wanted to see if you were. Thank you. I didn't know if this was working. So, good. We'll continue on. If anyone has any questions that you want to chime in on, please let me know, okay? Okay, I will accept a motion to move Article 5 as printed in the warrant. Motion been made, is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Are there any questions on Article 5? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on Article 5? Also seeing none, is there any dissent to passing Article 5 unanimously? Seeing none, Article 5 passes unanimously. I'll accept the motion to move Article 6 as printed in the warrant. Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Are there any questions on Article 6? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on Article 6? Also seeing none, is there any dissent to passing Article 6 unanimously? Seeing none, Article 6 passes unanimously. I'll accept the motion to move Article 7. Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Are there any questions on Article 7? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on Article 7? Also seeing none, is there any dissent to passing Article 7 unanimously? Seeing none, Article 7 passes unanimously. Article 8, will accept a motion to move Article 8 as printed in the warrant. Nobody likes Article 8. Okay. Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Are there any questions on Article 8? Thank you. Is the representative from the planning board here to give you a report?
Planning board report and vote.
No vote. Okay.
To the file and to report the
Okay. I'll accept a motion to pass over Article 8. Is that good, Rich?
Yes, sir. So moved.
Okay, motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Is there any dissent to passing over Article 8? Seeing none, we'll pass over Article 8. Article 9. Accept the motion to move Article 9 as printed in the warrant. And that one you didn't even let me get out of. Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Are there any questions on Article 9? Okay, seeing none. Oh, I apologize. In the back line?
Good evening, Jacob Schultzberg, 2 Stonehill Drive. My question is just with the wording in section 16.6, letter D and E. No, D and E, where it says, except those identified in C above. I just don't know what section C it's referring to. And if you read the language in both section C's, all the wording just gets mixed around and gets really confusing.
So I'm just going to ask you to hang on for 1 second, because I'm going to guess, well, Matt, are you going to be the best person to ask, or to answer this, and did you hear the question?
Mr. Moderator, thank you. I heard the question, and I think there's some missing information here. I think the reference is to 16.5, subsection C. So that subsection that I just referenced is the exception to this bylaw. So the bylaw does not apply to anyone soliciting door-to-door for youth groups, serving children 17 years of age and under, politicians campaigning, and religious organizations. So I believe that what 16.6 D and E are referring to is that subsection? Is just reaffirming that those people don't have to comply with this proposed bylaw?
Just a follow-up, Mr. Moderator.
One second, please. Before we go any further, you guys might be wondering where the voice of God is coming from. Matt Wojcik, our town administrator, is out of the country right now and has paused his vacation in order to attend this meeting virtually. He's wearing a funny straw hat and some swim trunks, but no, he's not. So anyway, he is here with us on Zoom to be able to answer some of these questions that we might have that might be specific to his expertise. So that's where the voice is coming from. So at this point, anytime town council wants to speak, I usually find it wise to do that. So, Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Maybe just a clarifying friendly amendment along the lines of, I move to amend the proposal on the floor by clarifying 16.6D so that it reads section 16.5C in the third line. And you could make that motion simply by saying so moved.
So moved.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, this kind of goes under the umbrella of it's a typo, so, we're being a little extra on this, but, so all those in favor of accepting that, I need a second on that amendment. We got a second. All those in favor of accepting that amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. All right, the ayes clearly have it. So we've corrected that typo. Do you have a question on the article or want to speak to?
No, he mentioned section D and D and E.
So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in section D, in 16, I'm trying really hard not to get this up on the screen because everything else is, so I apologize for that.
That motion would have covered both the,
We've got another motion? Okay. Please.
Mr. Moderator, that's an excellent point. The appropriate motion would be, I further move to amend 16.6E by putting in the preface section 16.5 before C in the third line, and the appropriate motion would be so moved.
so moved.
Motion been made. Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. You've officially fixed the typos. Would that be correct? Are we good on this now? Okay, so you have a follow-up?
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead.
Just where it's listed in D then, with those groups not having to adhere, I kind of read that they don't have to adhere then to the master and the law trespass laws. Like,
Matt, did
if
you
you
hear
tell
that?
them to leave, they don't have to leave according to this.
All right, so I know, judging by Matt's ear, which is kind of going like this, I'm going to actually ask you to put the mic up a little higher and repeat the question, please.
Just specifically in section D, where if it's referencing those groups in C 16.5, you can kind of read that those groups are allowed to violate the trespass laws of Massachusetts.
So the groups being, can you please just specifically say which groups you're saying would be allowed to violate the law?
The politicians, children groups, and religious organizations.
Okay, and I'm going to go off the board here and probably try to answer that one myself. Rich, back me up or correct me if I'm wrong. You don't want to wade into First Amendment lawsuits, and so that's why those groups are excluded.
Just how it's worded though, they're exempt from the general laws.
That's correct. Because to apply those people to the general law would be opening up yourself to a lawsuit on First Amendment grounds. What they're doing is protected speech under the First Amendment.
They still have to adhere to Mass General laws of trespassing.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And Rich, there's nothing that we could do to change Mass General law, so no matter what we say.
Well, just the answer is yes.
Okay.
It's subject to the law.
Yeah, so they are still subject to the law. Should the wording be changed in any way to, no? Okay. And the reason is because there's nothing a town can do in order to change Mass General law, so they're still going to be subject to Mass General law. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but the wording just doesn't make sense if that's how it has to be. I'm just trying to fix the wording or make it more clear if possible. It just shouldn't be this confusing.
Okay. And would you want to be proposing an amendment? I'll give you some time to think about that while I see if there's any other questions. Other questions? In the back.
It's Jared Connor, 825 Northwest Main Street. My question's related, and maybe this would help clarify in thinking about a potential amendment, is why would the current trespass Mass General law not be sufficient to prevent the presence of unwanted parties on my property? Why do I need this ordinance, this bylaw, rather than simply posting a no trespassing sign and invoking the Mass General law to protect myself?
We are now out of my realm of expertise, and we are going to go straight to Rich.
Oh, nice try. No, that's a policy question for the proponent of the proposed bylaw to explain. Obviously, the proponent had a reason for doing this, and I think the proponent would be the person to tell us what that reason was.
Okay. Do we have a member of the Board of Selectmen who would like to address that?
I didn't hear the question.
It's basically why do we need, and please correct me if I'm paraphrasing incorrectly, why do we need a bylaw when the no trespassing laws would already apply?
Not a law,
Please
not a lawyer or a law professional. However, I believe that if you want to use the no trespassing rule, then you're going to have to post your property every 50 feet with your contact information. So I guess if you want that to work for you, that's what you would need to do. This is going to prevent people from having solicitors come to their house if they choose that they don't want to. If you want them to come to your house, it's real simple. Just don't fill out, put your name on the registry, and they'll still come just as if nothing was happening.
You have a follow-up? Go ahead.
So I apologize. Yeah, so to clarify, the bylaw, the registry is for we residents to register to say we don't want solicitors to come see us?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, so what I'm going to say is, would anyone like to speak on the article? And this would be if there are any amendments, then raise your hand to be recognized and you propose your amendment. Would anyone like to speak on the article? Okay, seeing none, is there any dissent to passing this article unanimously? Okay, seeing none, Article 9 passes unanimously. Okay, I'll take a motion to move Article 10. Let me rephrase that, Article 10 as printed in the warrant. Still moved, great. Is there a second? Motion been made and seconded. Are there any questions on Article 10? Yes.
this will be a transfer from water sewer enterprise funds retained earnings for the sum of $300,000.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. We do have a question in the back. Just wait for the mic to get to you, please. Go ahead and stand.
My name is Sandy Bradley. I live on Depot Street. I have 11 questions, and the first one is this for an engineering study, or is this to do the actual work and dig?
That's a fantastic question. Please, go ahead. Kaden, can you bring her to the mic, please? And I say it's fantastic because I asked the same one.
Bob Sullivan, Systems Manager for the Water Sewer Department. This is for the design engineering. So they would design the work, or we could put it out to bid to do the work.
No shovels. Correct? Correct. No shovels. Just pens, no shovels.
Very good, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, right over here.
Mark Monjum, 20 Depot Street. Is the purpose of the water project to increase the supply towards Maple Street?
Kaden, can you back up there, please? You might as well just kind of hang out with him for a little bit.
This would increase the volume. It would provide additional fire protection at the municipal center, but it would also, the primary reason is to address the aging infrastructure in that road. One of the key criteria for the ARPA funds was to fix problems within the water distribution system, and that road is where we get the majority of discolored water complaints anytime there's a high flow downtown or to the northwest of the, or northeast of the town. Does that answer your question?
Was your question answered? Okay, follow up.
I understand about the volume of the water. This is a drainage project as well, so will the drainage be in the street be addressed through this project?
There's a culvert about halfway up that needs repair. But if we find any drainage issues during the design phase, we'll address those at the same time.
Did you state your name and position?
The systems manager.
Okay, thank you.
Sewer department.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on the article? Okay, also seeing none, is there any dissent to passing Article 10 unanimously? Hearing none, Article 10 passes unanimously. I don't know, I kind of feel like it should be like some, you know, like some rocky music in the background. Now for the main event. Just before we get into the petition articles, I just kind of want to go over, again, a little bit about scope. And I know I mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting, but I think it bears repeating. When we talk about scope, we talk about kind of the parameters of the discussion that's allowed for different articles. And I know that you know, we can kind of go back to some previous projects where people really want to talk about the project, the proposed project, even though what was before us wasn't the proposed project. It was funding or bylaws that were set in front of us to discuss. So for these next two discussions, we're talking about the merits of these bylaws themselves. We're not talking about any specific projects or I want this or I don't want this. It is the bylaws and the integrity of those bylaws that we're proposing themselves. Okay? So with that, I will accept a motion for Article 11 as printed in the warrant. Motion been made, and is there a second? Motion been made and seconded. So on this one, I already know there is going to be discussion, so we're going to start with a proponent speech. Is there someone who would like to give a proponent speech for Article 11? Al, would you like to? Kate, I appreciate your enthusiasm. That was awesome, but yeah, it was. I'm gonna give Hal the big boy mic on this one.
Next time, no worries. Be ready.
Hal Davis, 80 Orange Street. Through you, Mr. Moderator, to the town meeting. I have a confession to make. I have a financial interest in the passage of Article 11. I'm tired of spending money replacing the side mirrors and struts on my cars. Why is this happening? Orange Street, an unpaved road, usually with many potholes, is simply too narrow and dangerous, particularly when you reach the camel humps where vision is impaired. Ernie and everyone else in the highway department do a great job in frequently regrading Orange Street in order to keep up with the many potholes. Nevertheless, the potholes always come back. I have learned to live with the situation, as have my neighbors on Orange Street and Perry Street Extension. However, many of us are frightened by the possibility of further deterioration of the road. This would be caused by potentially hundreds of truckloads of gravel traveling on Orange Street and connecting to and impacting Pine Street, Southeast Main, and other Douglas streets in order to reach 146 or 395. Such potential heavy traffic is a public safety matter, as potentially causing more damage to Orange and other Douglas, even those that are paved. So what would the adoption of Article 11 do? The article would amend the town's earth removal bylaw. It would only impact gravel removal on parcels abutting or gravel truck travel passing over the town's scenic roads that already now require a special permit from the planning board. Exemptions are listed in section 6.13 of the bylaw. Most significantly, gravel removal done in connection with an incidental construction of buildings does not require an earth removal permit. So any such building constructed generating excess gravel on our scenic roads would not be restricted by Article 11. The aim of the approximately 130 residents that signed the petition is to prohibit commercial gravel operations on land abutting our scenic roads and any trucks traveling thereon. It will not interfere with the property owner's ordinary use of the land, such as residential construction. Previous town meetings have designated all of Orange Street and portions of Main Church, Oak, and Northwest Mains as scenic roads. These preserve some of our best views in our town. Let's not risk them by permitting such a detrimental use as gravel extraction and hauling. While currently we do not know of any gravel mining activities set for our scenic roads, let's be ready and prepared.
Questions on this article? In the back. Just wait for the mic, please.
Hello, my name is Nick Carlson. I live on Wickstead Court. My question about this article is if it's only gravel getting hauled out, or is it only gravel getting hauled in, or is it all together? Typically, to build a house, you need to bring some gravel in for the foundation and for building a project. So.
Go ahead and hand the mic back, please.
The way I read the bylaw, it's only for extraction. It's not, unless it's subject to the permit under the earth removal statute or bylaw. So if that's passing, you're bringing in for a commercial project, then in fact you would be covered by it. But if you're bringing in for a residential project, a single family home and filling in, I would not think that it covers that situation.
Follow up? No? Okay. Other questions? Okay. Over here.
Whiskey Island Road. I'd like to make a statement too as well after I ask my question.
No, statements will be after.
Okay. My question is, why wasn't this brought before the planning board in the way that we usually adopt amendments so that, we can get the input from various departments throughout the town instead of a citizen's petition that was brought by somebody who doesn't even live in this town? I'd like to get, our planning board does great jobs tonight, and they get everybody get their opinions in. And I'm just wondering why this wasn't brought up in that manner.
So I'm gonna allow the question, but just understand we're like right on the line of scope in this question. So go ahead.
Excellent question. I'm glad you asked it. I think the reason was a question of timing. By the time that the folks, the proponents got together, the deadlines for filing and going through the ordinary process of going through the planning board, et cetera, was not there. And I think the article itself is fairly straightforward. I think it's easy to understand. Doesn't require, I think, a lot of analysis, but I think it basically was the folks that were interested in this, when they put the petition together, it was past the deadline to file with the town to go through the normal procedure.
Other questions?
Can we go through the normal procedures?
Name and address, please.
52 Main Street, Greg Lund. Can we go through the normal procedures on this through the planning board and not some outside of petition?
So again, this is like really on the edge of.
We don't do gray area though.
I'm sorry.
If it's a standard that you do it that way, why can't we do it that way on this?
Can you hand the mic back, please? So, in our bylaws, we have the ability for a citizen petition to exist. So, it is coded into our town bylaws. So this is a perfectly legitimate use of town meeting and as well as the town. I think Carol did a good job of asking a very similar question to what you're asking, which is why it didn't go through those other channels. So we're not going to go any further over that line. I had kind of said when Carol asked that question, we're right on the ragged edge of we're here to debate the merits of this article. You have a follow-up, please.
If it's the merits of this, and you said from the beginning that this wasn't about something, and now it is about something, so just let the cat out of the bag. Say what you want to say about what this project is about. And because this isn't about anything else. If you're fast-tracking this for a reason, there's something else behind it. Don't say it's not for a legitimate reason when you have a reason to say it and go this fast about it. What's the project you're scared about? Just say it.
Okay. I don't need help from the audience. Thank you. We are going to move on. Again, it is not about the project. I understand your concern. It is about the merits of this article. So, other questions? I'm just going to see if anyone else has something else first. Carol? Any other questions in the back on the first-time speaker list?
Jacob Schultzberg, 2 Stone Hill Drive. Has the town council for land use reviewed this article?
Do we have a town council for land use? We do. Excellent. Please, Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to the previous speaker. I have to say, I don't know whether Land Use Council has reviewed this proposal or not. I've looked at it, and if I can share my thoughts with you briefly. Of course, you know, we value the right of citizen petition to put legislation in front of the body. That's one of the great things about democracy. I think Carol accurately raised a concern about whether this would be better suited as a zoning proposal than as a general bylaw. My concern in particular is that if the meeting votes this, the next step for the review of any bylaw is that it goes to the Attorney General for review and analysis as to whether it conflicts with any state law. And I do have a concern, just to make you aware. The principal motivation as expressed by the proponent was wear and tear on the way, especially the potential or the actual heavy wear and tear caused by truck traffic on the way, and whether it can bear that level of use and whether it could bear an even greater level of use if some hypothetical event of which we are not to speak apparently were to happen. Sorry, I hope that was okay that way. So my concern is this, that under, I believe it's Chapter 90 of the state law, and certainly under the Mass Department of Transportation regulations, there is something called a truck exclusion. And that is a process by which a municipality can petition Mass Department of Transportation to limit or prohibit truck traffic on particular ways that, you know, for a variety of reasons may not be safe for heavy truck traffic. The state very jealously guards that power because, and I'm not suggesting that this is an example or that we in Douglas have been guilty of this in the past. I don't think we have. But there have been communities out there that have misused the concept of truck exclusions. And so the state is very protective of the ability to regulate and exclude certain types of traffic. So in this particular case, I think that were you to pass this, and if it goes to the Attorney General, I would expect that there's a fair chance that the Attorney General is going to come back and say, if this is really about excluding truck traffic, there's an alternate way to go about this. So I just want you to be aware of that potential, you know, no harm, no foul if the AG says no. You know, it's not a problem, but that is my principal concern here. And that plus, you know, I honestly think, and with no disrespect to Hal, who I think came in at a fairly late time in on this, probably would have been better framed as a zoning proposal since it purports to regulate property and land. So that's what I think what Land Use Council thought. My guess is probably about the same. Thank you.
So if you could just expand on, and this is more for my own edification than anything else, when articles are passed, they go to, the clerk submits them along with the vote to the AG, Attorney General. The Attorney General reviews them. If they're okay, you know, then that's it. If there is something that is onerous in there that they don't agree with, and they kick it back, what happens at that point?
Sure. If I may, Keith, it's all governed by Chapter 40, Section 32.
That one.
Such a wise guy. You know, even though we'd like to think that whatever we vote here is sort of the final word on the subject, it's not. The Attorney General has a branch office in Worcester, which is populated by 4 exceedingly intelligent assistant attorney generals. And when we pass something, Madam Clerk will send a certificate that we voted it to those extremely wise assistant attorney generals who will look it over and try to figure out whether we're doing what's within our corporate powers or whether we're trying to pull a fast one. And I'll get a phone call from one the AGs will say, Rich, what's Douglas up to now? And I'll say, no, we're just doing people's business. What's your problem? You know, and it goes from there, and we'll argue about why something that you voted should be adopted. Now, at the same time, that perhaps I'm arguing with the AG as to why something you voted should be approved by the AG. Citizens will call up the Attorney General's office and say, no, this is horrible. You shouldn't do this. It violates the law. So there's almost like a, I don't want to dramatize it, but almost like a miniature court battle that occurs after you vote if something's a hot potato. I'm guessing this is a hot potato. Well, we know it's a hot potato. And so that type of thing would happen. So with my comments about how I saw this unfold, I just wanted you to be aware that when Madam Clerk sends it to the AG has a certain time period within which to review. If they approve it, Madam Clerk publishes it, and it becomes our law. If the AG looks at it and says, no, there's a problem, it should have been this, or it should have been that, or that conflicts with this regulation, the AG will say, I disapprove maybe all of it, I disapprove part of it. If it's a partial disapproval, then, we'll probably be back in a future town meeting saying, let's fix it. If not, if it's a total disapproval, it's dead as a doornail. So, Keith, I hope that did it.
It did, thank you. Other questions? In the back, please.
Dave Wendolowski, 48 Orange Street. I'm a civil engineer in the state of Massachusetts, and
I'm just going to stop you just real quick. This is going to be a question.
I just think we should.
Is this going to be a question? No. Okay. So hang on. We will get to a point where people can speak on the article, but right now we're in question and answer. So are there any other questions? Right there.
Anthony Jennings, 12 Meeting House. I just had a question on the background. What does it take to create a scenic road in town?
What does it take to create a scenic road? Approval of town meeting. Okay. Approval of town meeting. So you would have a petition where, it would come here and say, I move that Gilboa Street becomes a scenic road, and then it's either approved or not approved. Yeah, so we already have a list of currently approved scenic roads in town. So if anyone wanted to be added, then it would have to come before this meeting to do so. Does that answer your question? Okay, great. Other questions? Right here. Yeah, we need the mics because we're also taping this.
Yep. Okay. Joe, Perry Street Extension, 254. My question is, if this doesn't go through and we do have this happen, I'm going to speak in my situation. Will there be road improvements? Because my house has been shaken by logging trucks for the first 2 years that I lived here. So will there be road improvements? Is there anything that's going to prevent our houses from rocking off the foundations?
I'm just trying to clarify your question. If this does not pass, are there going to be road improvements done? That's not pertinent to Article 11. However, it is something that I believe, so this goes into a larger discussion about kind of road condition in Douglas, which is kind of why it's not really pertinent here. I understand your concerns. There is currently, do we have a member of the highway department here? Okay. And I'm not going to throw you under the bus right now. I'm just going to say that I do know that you, and please again correct me if I'm disseminating incorrect information, you have a hit list of streets that you're working on in order to improve the conditions of And at the annual town meeting, there was additional money that was approved to continue that process of road improvements in the town of Douglas. Am I speaking out of turn, or am I saying that correctly?
That's correct, but every street extension is a private road, so that's not a town road.
Okay. Okay. So, and I apologize for my ignorance here, is Perry considered a scenic road? No. So so it totally doesn't. But I think he also kind of, hinted at another issue that you have outside of this. So, there are probably other avenues to pursue at another time. Other questions? Good.
Jacob Schultzberg, 2 Stonehill Drive. It's a follow-up to my previous question. This went through the normal process. The Town Use Council would have probably answered it, but I'm just curious if there's a concern that this is essentially spot zoning, since earth removal is allowed within the zoned areas and streets that were mentioned by the proponent's speech.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. To the previous speaker, that's a very interesting question.
And as we're answering that, can we, for anyone that doesn't know what spot zoning is?
Oh, sure.
Please.
Spot zoning is a type of zoning that's very much frowned on by the courts, where you take a very small area in town, sometimes as small as one parcel, and create, I'll call it preferential zoning that allows the property owner in that specially zoned area to do a lot more. By a lot more, I mean, more intense activity, bigger buildings, or a completely different use than is allowed under the prevailing district zoning. So it's very much frowned on. In this case, I don't believe that this would be considered spot zoning because, even though some of the audience may have in their mind a particular area that might be, or a particular property that might be affected, it's of sufficiently broad application that you wouldn't really consider it to be spot. And then, I didn't say the word zoning. I'd like to say the word zoning, but technically, as this is presented to the meeting, it's not zoning. So I couldn't call it spot zoning, even if I thought it was spot zoning. But even if it were a zoning article, and I'm sorry if this is starting to sound like a Monty Python sketch, but I don't think this would have been spot zoning. Thank you.
Weaved and Bob. That was impressive. Other questions? Down in front of you, please.
Hi, my name is Emily Byram, Ridge Trail. I acknowledge Ridge Trail is not a scenic road, so this doesn't directly affect me. I have a question about what constitutes as a violation, which might be answered in the earth removal law that I'm just not aware of. Is it the removal of a certain amount of square feet that constitute a violation, a piece of stone wall, a single tree? So what constitutes as a violation to warrant the fines?
Okay. If this was adopted, a violation would be if you extracted gravel and trucked it out on a scenic road or properties abutting the scenic roads in Douglas, or through traffic that is of a commercial nature that was passing through the scenic road. But if somebody, again, as I said in my presentation, was doing some gravel extraction in connection with building a house or a garage, that's not covered by the gravel permits section. So this would only be basically commercial type operations that were either passing through on a scenic road or abutting a scenic road. It depends, it would depend on what the purpose is. If it was coming from a commercial type gravel extraction operation, I guess it could be a pickup. I don't think they would be using pickup trucks, but it could be any sort of a vehicle. It's the source of the gravel and where it's from that's the determinant. And then there's a fines in the amendment that increase the fines over what's already in the existing bylaw on gravel removal.
Has your question been answered? Okay. In the back, please.
Hi, Nick again, Wickstead. So if you lived on a scenic road and you wanted to dig a pool, for instance, that would be a violation? No? That'd be gravel removal with a commercial vehicle?
So it would, no, because it wouldn't be commercial.
In the existing bylaw, it says that if you're in connection with a house or anything appurtenant to, that's not covered by it. There's no restrictions. It could be on a scenic road or anywhere else. And if you were trucking it out from that sort of a operation, so to speak, putting in a swimming pool, that again is not covered. The change was designed if you're going to have a commercial type gravel operation, that would be a negative. There was more than for residential construction or anything ancillary to that.
Other questions? Ready?
So on here, you're going to get in trouble for removing stone walls, knowing our whole town is built with stone walls from being a farming community. That's what that says. You're going to get a fine if you want to open up your own property into a stone wall. You're going to get fined.
Your name and address, please.
52 Main Street, Red One.
Thank you. Pass the mic back.
Excellent question, but the bylaw right now, it specifically talks about you need a permit to move a stone wall. It has nothing to do with the gravel amendment that we're trying to put in. So that would not increase that, but the scenic roads, the key features about them, you can't cut trees or move the stone walls without having a hearing on that, following the rules. So this doesn't change that. That's already there in the existing rules.
You have a follow-up? Go ahead.
Why would we have to amend this then? Why would we have to change the existing if this is already talked about in our bylaws?
Can you say that again?
Why are we even bringing this up if it's already talked about in our bylaws?
No, it's only, okay, in the bylaws, it says nothing, the restrictions on scenic roads currently are you can't disturb the trees or the stone walls without going through a process that's outlined in that. This goes beyond that and says we've got problems with commercial type gravel operations, either on roads abutting, like property abutting the scenic road, or if you're passing through heavy truck traffic from some other area going on a scenic road. That's what it addresses. It doesn't change in any way the stone walls or tree removal limitations on scenic property.
Other questions? Okay, seeing no one, anyone would like to speak on the article?
Carol Koglinski, Allen Road. I spent my life in the gravel business. I used to
Carol, can you bring the mic up a little higher, please?
Can you hear me now? Okay. Carol Koglinski, Allen Road. I spent my life in the gravel business. I used to own pine. My family owned pine, where pine is now. But I've been out of business for 20 years, and I have no income coming in from it, and so I don't really have a financial dog in this fight. But one of the things I will tell you, I can understand people being certainly concerned about a bunch of trucks going down the scenic road. However, our earth removal, the zoning board or the planning board that gives these permits have a lot of power on where these trucks can go. And the reason that I know that is that we owned a parcel, but there was a great deal of gravel behind us that was owned by someone else. They had access to go down North Street. North Street's a super highway compared to Orange Street. They were never allowed to get a permit to go down North Street. They had to work with us, and they had to go through our property. They had to pay us to go through our property. It was better than the Mass Pike. So if they could have gotten this permit, they certainly would have gone down North Street. So, well, I mean, I certainly understand your concerns, and I would not want to see trucks on a scenic road either. I just wanted to give you that, and I really do think that anything like this should go through the planning board. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on the article? In the back? Back. Go.
Dave Wendelowski, 48 Orange Street.
Can you just bring the mic up just a little
Yep.
bit? Thank you.
I think we should, I got a little offended when we put a frame around this problem as a vehicle maintenance problem, where it's a safety issue, where we have these hills that we can't see over now. Our road has been great, the gravel in the road for many years, and the pavements are 5 feet high on either side of the road, so you can't move to the side to get around anything. And it's only in the summer, barely 2 cars wide. A lot of places it's not even. You have to back up now. So to have any kind of earth removal operation with trailer dumps going down our road is just ridiculous. If the town's not going to do something to better our road, there's about 6 culverts across our road now that are just stones that were buried with dirt over it. And Hal had one wash out in front of his house the other year. And to say the state's gonna close a road, that's if there's a bridge or something, because we go around and we rate bridges every year and we inspect them, and if we'll put a load, like down near the ball field there, I think that's a low grading line. There's nothing on Orange Street where the state's gonna come in and say you can't go down a little dirt road. 30 years in the state, I've never heard of such a thing, but it is a vehicle maintenance problem, I tell you, because every car I've ever had is destroyed in 2 years, but it's more a safety issue. People ride their horses up and down our street, people take their kids in their carriages up and down our street, we have a truck going over the hill, they can't see the other side. So, I was a little offended by that. Anyway.
Anyone else like to speak on the article? Over here.
Joe Perry Street, extension. I too grew up next to a gravel pit. My grandparents lived right next door to it. Spent my entire summers working and hanging out with my grandparents, listening to it. It's a non-stop sound. The joke I always tell people when I moved to Douglas, which was so awesome, was I could hear the wind coming 2 miles away. It was so peaceful on the scenic area. Listening to a rock crusher and dozers and trucks moving all day and night.
I'm going to interrupt you here because...
Well, no, you let everyone talk about questions. There was no one asked a question earlier. I'm just making a statement.
You're talking about...
I'm talking about
operations that don't exist in this bylaw. So keep it to this bylaw, which is about the trucking on a scenic road.
Okay.
Earth removal.
That's what I'm talking about. A scenic road that's very quiet, that's very peaceful, and you put that in there. You'll hear it from miles. The scenic road, it's not going to be scenic anymore. It's going to be non-stop industrial. That's my point. And the road and the trucks, yeah, absolutely. It's dangerous right now. I got to move out of the way just for FedEx trucks to come by. Never mind a pit. So, and again, I apologize, but I'm not hearing questions. I'm hearing statements, so.
That's because we moved on to statements.
That's
But what I'm saying is the statements
It's
still.
totally
have to
about
be-
this, it's about that.
Okay. A rock crusher isn't anywhere on here.
A rock crusher is part of removal of, when you're talking gravel, it's not just trucks. How do you get it out of the ground?
This is about trucks.
Right.
So that's what we're sticking to. Okay? Would anyone else?
Removal of gravel has to happen with something, not a shovel.
Would anyone else like to speak on the article? And who is yes? And does me have a hand? Where are we? There we go.
Matt Lohr, Southeast Main Street, Douglas, Mass. I'd like to make a motion to move the article.
No, you don't.
Why not?
You might want to make a motion to vote on the article.
All right, let's make a motion to vote on it. I think you get my point.
Motion been made to call the question. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. No. Okay. All those in favor of closing debate and moving on to the vote, please stand. If you could just raise up your placards a little bit, it'll make it a lot easier for the counters. Thank you. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand. You guys are loud. Can you show your voter placards, please? You can be seated. Closing debate does require a 2/3 majority, which we clearly have. So we will move on to voting on Article 11. So should I bother with the unanimous consent on this one? Okay. Not joke time now, I guess. Daylight savings time even takes the funny out of the room. That's, I tell you. All those in favor of Article 11, please stand. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand. You may be seated. Article 11 requires a simple majority, which it carries with a vote of 48 to 29. And the Patriots win. Too soon? Okay, Article 12. Is there a motion to move Article 12? As printed in the warrant. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Do we have somebody who would like to give a proponent speech on Article 12? Please.
Thank you again, Mr. Moderator, gentlemen of the Select Board, town employees in attendance this evening, and most importantly, the voters who will be hearing tonight about Article 12. A little bit more? Okay. So sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Justin Picciarello. I'm a property owner, taxpayer here in the town of Douglas. I reside in Attleboro, but I'm here to describe Article 12 on behalf of many resident proponents who so kindly pushed for the addition of this question to this evening's special town meeting warrant through the citizen petition process, which was discussed earlier. Now, I'm not going to exaggerate here. I believe that Article 12 represents perhaps one of the most important items for consideration that you may see at a town meeting for a decade or more. Your careful consideration is really crucial. With your vote, you will decide the pace of residential development in the town of Douglas. And while you may not see that effect today, most assuredly 10 or 20 years from now, the result of this evening's discussion and vote will affect the trajectory of the community of Douglas. In 2010, excuse me, the Douglas Town Meeting passed a zoning law with certain language which restricted the quantity of building permits that might be issued to an applicant developer of new residential subdivisions. This language in the 2010 zoning bylaw was coupled to a sunset provision which terminated its effectivity in 2015. The law reduced the number of building permits for those years it was effective to no greater than 15 annually per year per applicant. The article before you this evening would reenact those provisions in its own way and further reduce this limitation to no greater permits than might generate 5 new residential dwellings annually per applicant. The people, the character, and the ecology of the town of Douglas, I believe, are what make it special. And I'm sure in your own way you might also agree. We should do our best to preserve those things. The town is at a crossroads. Residential development projects that seek to consume open acreage and dramatically increase the population of Douglas are concerning to me, and they should be, I hope, to you as well. I have met and discussed this article with a number of residents, including some whose residence has proudly been in this town for over 90 years. The opinions of those residents were ones of concern over the changes that they have witnessed at that time. This is your opportunity to ensure that the future residents aren't bewildered to find what has happened to their place in community. This article is an opportunity not to stop development, but to moderate its pace of change by re-engaging the bylaws of the town with reasonable conditions on future residential developments. Article 12, with the consent of the voters here tonight, would again limit the number of building permits to any single applicant or developer of new residential construction residences. And I'll try to do my best to summarize the language to state what this article represents and what it doesn't represent, so that it doesn't fall through the cracks of alternative interpretation. What it does, again, it sets a limit on new residential building permit applications to no more than 5 residential dwellings per year per applicant. The building inspector, principally, would be responsible for tracking and administering this bylaw if it is put in place. In legal terms, second point, in legal terms, a developer of residential property can take many forms. They may be an individual, a corporate entity of various kind, a trust. Without the language that is present in this article, developers may convey property between entities or to different owners to shield themselves from the article's intent. The language in the article is intended to capture these many combinations that might exist. The third point is the language also captures the variety of residential construction configurations. So the annual limitation on permits are tied to the number of dwellings within those projects. For instance, an applicant might seek to build 5 multifamily residences. Under this language, the applicant would only be able to receive permits for a maximum, again, of 5 residential dwellings annually. Now, what this doesn't do, the article, it does not limit someone from conducting a modest business here in Douglas. It does not stop residential development. If an applicant wants, the following year they can come back and get additional permits. It does not limit the total number of new residential building permits across the pool of applicants that might come before the town. It does not limit in any way the restoration or modification of an existing residence. This only applies to new residential construction. It does not limit in any way the permit application for commercial development. That's separate. Now, over the last few weeks, I've encountered several points brought by others that they have raised in consideration of this language, and I would like to address some of these briefly. A concern was raised that this article, if it were to be enacted, might incentivize the use of alternative planning procedures, such as Mass General Law, Chapter 40B. If you're not familiar with it, it's language in the state law which is intended to foster affordable housing. I would like to address the practicality of that procedure, if I may. It is true that this alternative planning procedure, like 40B, can be used by developers as a way to escape or get around certain zoning and general bylaws of the municipality. Things like frontage, area, setback, or other requirements such as what this article presents here this evening. In exchange for these allowances by the state under Chapter 40B and similar rules, there are certain restrictions that the developer must consider in this trade-off. The Commonwealth, in exchange for the affordable housing and its ability to circumvent zoning and other bylaws, there are certain limits that are placed upon the properties and the development itself. They set restrictions on the price point that the properties can be offered at to the market. They limit the number of homes that you can build under that jurisdiction. The most important thing to recognize for this discussion here is that the state also limits the profitability of these projects. The profit margin set by the state is no greater than 6%. okay? And so if somebody's coming to town and saying, oh, we're gonna get around your bylaw, we're gonna go do this affordable housing project, well, then they're gonna be faced with doing this project for no greater than 6% profit. If you look very briefly, today's bond and CD rates are about 5.5% annually. So I guess it just doesn't jive to me from a practical standpoint that I would put in all the risk to develop a 40B project versus just taking the money and throwing it in the bank. So another question I received was, well, why don't you just allow the planning board to handle matters such as this, where we have large projects coming to town? This is very simple. Somebody who served on the planning board for a few years, I've seen a thing or two. And when a developer wants to engineer a development, the first thing they're going to look at is the state regulations, the local bylaws, and they develop a plan for those things in their business idea or concept which are not explicitly forbidden by law. If the developer's plans are not forbidden in the regulations, the state regulations or the local bylaws, a planning board does not have within its authority to stop a developer. If they try and they're not careful about it, they can be sued. Bring them to court, and the municipality may not win, and the developer will take the court costs back with them, and they'll get to do their project the way they want it. So quite simply, provided that folks will agree to vote in favor, this article will provide the legal framework by which it can reliably moderate the pace of residential construction. It has done so in the past, and with this verbiage, it will be able to do just the same. And without it, the door is open, planning board or not. Now, I've had some other comments about, again, practical matters. And there's been some questions about the 5 units annually. Where does that come from? And I don't know if it's material here or not, but 5 units per year is 1 new home every 10 weeks. And I'm sure there's somebody in the room who built a house or two. You know, think of that schedule. It probably takes 4 of the 10 weeks just to do the site work to be able to get a foundation in the ground and get ready for a sill. Then you got framing, you got interior, you got insulation, plumbing, wiring, all the rest. 1 house every 10 weeks, in my mind, is not an unreasonable pace of construction for most applicants. And I don't think it's much of a harm or an issue. Anyway, I hope you'll take these factors into consideration while you deliberate on which way you'll vote. And I'd like to thank everybody who supports this article, and I hope we can work together to protect Douglas as the wonderful community I know it to be. So, thank you.
We don't do that. It's not a Patriots game. Because nobody applauds Patriots games anymore. Okay. It's an easy target. I apologize. It's low-hanging fruit. Any questions? Right over here.
Hi, I'm Mike Coyle. Live on Vine Street. And developers may have different divisions within their company, so is there anything that stops someone that works for the same developer? In other words, can more than one person request the 5 building permits and still work for the same developer?
Let me just see if I can clarify the question. Could someone who works for the same developer request multiple permits? So if you had, if a developer has 2 employees, can they each can they each apply for 5 permits, thereby making a total of 10?
That's a good question. I believe the applicant, so you're talking about for a commercial project of a residential development, I'm guessing. When you go to the building inspector, there are 2 pieces of information that the building inspector requires on that permit application, I believe. One is the property owner, and the second is the applicant as the person responsible, the CSL, construction supervisor license, that's associated with that permit application. And so your question is, if you had 2 CSLs working for one entity, are they considered 2 CSLs or one entity? Just one moment, I'm just gonna look at the language here, just to make sure
I'll move on to the next. I'm going to go ahead and move on to another question, and while he's just researching that, then we'll get back to the answer to that question. Is that okay? Just for expediency, I've already had a whole Mountain Dew and a bunch of water, so at some point, you know. Any other questions? In the back, ladies first.
Pam Schwartz, 343 Southeast Main Street. A question to the Finance Committee. Can you explain your concerns in the manner in which you voted 0 yes, 4 no, and 1 abstention on this article?
Please.
Dick Vandenberg, Linden Street Finance Committee. We had just received the paperwork on it the night of our meeting. We hadn't seen it before, and as we read it over, we just had a lot of questions, and because they weren't able to be answered, we just felt we couldn't endorse it because there was too much we didn't know. We hadn't seen it before our meeting. We haven't had a chance to read it, so.
Thank you. Other questions?
Jim Duchamp, Southeast Main Street. Right now, we have a limit of 15 building permits per contractor per year.
I believe that's incorrect. That part sunsetted. Am I? Yes, so that part sunsetted, so there is no current limit.
Could you tell me, what are we averaging? I'm trying to get an idea of, do we have a lot of contractors that actually complete 15 buildings per year?
What are you trying to ascertain by that question?
In the last couple of years, how many buildings does the average contractor put up? To me, 15, if the number 15 works, why are we trying to reduce it?
Well, because like I said, currently 15 doesn't exist. It used to exist, it doesn't exist. So that was part of the proponent speech that he was giving. And again, town council, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but when we had the limit of 15 in town, there was what they call sunsetting. So as of 2015, that limit went away. So that is not our current bylaw. And take it away if I've said anything wrong.
No, Mr. Moderator, you're right. That zoning bylaw sunsetted.
Okay. So do you have a follow-up question?
So right now, am I correct in saying there is no limit?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to move back to the answer to the previous question.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So the question again was, thank you. The question again was, if you had two CSLs working for one entity, are they considered one applicant or two? The way that this is written, it says it restricts no greater than 5 dwelling units where any of the succeeding conditions may exist. Number 3 is a common applicant requests new residential construction permits for a proposed new residential development or plurality thereof. It depends on how the applicant comes to the, my interpretation of the language is it depends on how the applicant comes to the building inspector. If the CSL is filing the application under their own name, that's one thing. If they're filing it under the entity that they work for, then that would be shared in common between those two different CSL holders. Does that answer your question?
So, can we modify the language so that only one developer, no matter how many people apply, can get the permits? I can see them doing
You're asking if an amendment could be made to clarify that an entity is a CSL or an entity is a bit. I'm not entirely sure what you're asking.
Well, I'll try and explain it, but I'm not sure how to word it. But let's say there's a developer that wants to put a lot of houses in, and he has 5 people that work for him that all go in and apply for the 5 permits. So that developer just got 25 houses this year instead of 5. So can we put some language in that says that developer can only do 5?
Thank you, sir. The language that's here should cover that potential situation. There's 3 conditions that would limit development to 5 dwelling units per year permit. So the first is the proposed new residential development or plurality thereof is situated upon a parcel of land or a group of parcels of land having a common landowner at the effective date of the bylaw. So when the Attorney General ostensibly would approve it. So that's the first condition. The second is if it's situated upon a parcel or group of parcels having a common landowner at the application date, it would also trigger this requirement. And then the third is the applicant, so the CSL that would be doing the work. So it kind of catches it from both sides. Thank you.
Other questions? Question? Okay. Questions? In the back. I get you on the next one. Go ahead.
Mark Moncho, 20 Depot Street. My question is to the proponent of the article. If their goal is to moderate development, then why are we specifically identifying one developer or one contractor and limiting them to 5 and not going back to the provision that we had in 2010 to 2015, which was a total of 15? It seems like this proposal is just damaging to a certain developer and not really doing what the intent is.
I believe you already answered it. Just want you to expand on it. clarify, because like I said, we're not getting into specifics of it's going to affect this person or not this person, or this project or not that project. However, I think it goes back to the original explanation of why 5 and not 15, so I am going to allow an expansion on that to answer your question.
So, relative to, sorry, am I allowed to comment upon the specificity comment?
Or why 5, not 15?
Okay, all right, so I'll exclude.
Why
yeah.
are we going down 5? Why are we going back to 15?
Okay. I can see your point about the difference between 15 per year and 5 per year. The feeling among the proponents for this article was to have this article be a little bit more restrictive than the embodiments of the previous bylaw. And I don't know how to be more specific than that.
Other questions? Right over here.
Cheryl Chamberlain, West Street. My question is you're talking about, 5 permits per entity. Can someone please define entity? You could have somebody that has one federal ID number and then they have children and they say they have 5 children. Each one of them can have their own federal ID number, makes them a separate entity, allowing them to build on that property, so you can end up with 30 houses anyways. So if you could define that a little bit better, it would be a little bit easier to answer that question. I think it kind of touches base on the gentleman down there trying to figure out how does that fit in. And when you were speaking on the proponent of it, you were speaking about
So I
like
think,
senior housing
I think
and 40B.
you stated your question.
Yes, I did, but I'm also wanting to comment that he
We're
went
not,
outside
we're
of
not
scope talking
doing,
about
we're not
40B.
doing comments right now. Comments will come later.
Sir,
Right
he
now
was allowed to talk
is
about out of scope. I don't understand
He
why I
was
can't.
not out of scope. I'm the
Talking
determinator
about
of
40B?
that. Okay. Other questions? Over here, please.
Again, I wonder why this was brought up like this without any input from the planning board. Like I said, we in the finance committee got this thing dropped on us. None of us had seen it before. I went to the town clerk and said, why didn't you get this up to us sooner? She said, I just got it the day before yesterday. So that's part of the reason. So why wasn't this brought up? I mean, this idea of, okay, nobody's coming through with a bunch of permits because you have to have all kind of engineering and everything. So that I can't see what the rush to do this is instead of getting the input from everybody in the planning board.
Madam, as Mr. Davis mentioned with the previous article, the use of the citizen petition was just simply to facilitate the scheduling around this special town meeting. The articles Articles 11 and 12, that is, were added to a meeting that was brought forward by the Board of Selectmen. There simply wasn't the time to, at the time that the proponents wanted to move these articles forward, there simply wasn't the time to go through that administrative route that you suggested. Certainly the proponents and myself, I mean, no disrespect to any of the members of those boards and committees that would have reviewed this, but I hope that the article can be voted upon based on the merits of what it contains, as opposed to whether the process was a typical process. The citizens petition process is a valid and legal process that was available to the proponents, and they chose to use it. Thank you.
Church Street. A question about the context of this. Has Douglas seen like a recent surge of development? Is there a certain developer who's had an abundance of dwellings recently? Mr. Moderator, I don't know who would regard that to.
So the part of that question that will be allowed is the why now. If you could go ahead and restate the question just so I can make sure I parse out the part that's within scope, I apologize.
Sure. The whole question was about the context. Has there been like a recent surge of development or a single developer that has like way more than 5 properties lately?
Yeah. So and that's the part that wouldn't be okay. So when we look at articles like this, what we have to look at is how does it affect the town? Is it a good bylaw? Does it, is it something that we want for the whole town or don't want for the whole town? So we can't say like, well, is there someone that we're trying to go after, or is there, is this a good idea or a bad idea based on the merits of the bylaw, not necessarily a specific instance. So unfortunately, that is out of scope. Other questions? Over there.
Mike Swicker, Oak Street. Would this amendment have any effect on any entity coming into town with a 40B project?
Good.
If they were coming to town with a 40B project, no, I don't think it would. And that's just my opinion. If you look at the 40B guidance for zoning boards of appeals, there is it outlines the ability of the zoning board to grant waivers to certain zoning and bylaw requirements. And I believe that this would fall under that category. Just my interpretation.
I can tell you have a follow-up, Mike.
Mike Swicker, Oak Street. That's a yes or no answer question I'm looking for. 40B is not regulated by the town, correct? At all? Yes or no? Zoning.
So he's looking for does this affect
I'm going to say no.
Can I ask a follow-up?
No, I got to keep going. Other questions? But I'm going to get the feeling that you're going to get a chance when it comes time to speak on the article.
Jim Dosham, Southeast Main Street. Is there anybody here from representing the planning board that could give us an idea as to how they feel about limiting the permits to 5 per year?
I can answer it.
Yeah, I just need to think about it for a second. That's. Did you guys have a meeting on this where you would be able to offer an official planning board report?
Not at all.
Okay.
We work it many times.
Okay, so we're going to skip over that.
I think.
Nah. Careful, like that. There's, yeah. Go ahead.
Any members of the planning board in audience, we're not speaking on behalf of the planning board because we weren't able to have a meeting to come up with a solution or a letter of support or denial. So there's no one that can represent and answer questions on behalf of the planning board.
That'll work. Thank you. Other questions? Over here.
Southeast Main Street. Within this project, the description for the bylaw, if anybody in town were to propose a 55 and older community, which we're in great need of, would this then limit then to 5 buildings in an over 55 and an older community, where you want to have multiple buildings to sustain the population needed?
Speak on the mic, please.
Yes, ma'am, this would restrict the construction or the permitting of those projects, just the same as any other residential construction project.
All right. Any other questions on the first-time speaker list? Okay, so this is going to be the last question, then we're going to move on to debate.
So please correct me if I'm wrong, and with the statement made earlier, then a 40B project would have no limit whatsoever on the number of dwellings or houses built in that project. Only, everything else would be restricted except for 40B. And that would be yes or no, please.
I put the limits on the answers, not you. Jeez.
So just to repeat the question, the part of the tail end of your question, so I understand it fully. Your comment was that, or your question was that this bylaw would restrict all other forms of construction except for 40B.
Correct, 40B would have no limit.
Well, I think there's you have to go through.
We can't do the crosstalk, so.
Sorry. You would have to go through the procedures that are outlined for a 40B development, and ostensibly through that procedure, the applicant might seek a waiver for this bylaw. Whether or not they'd be granted that waiver or not, I can't tell you.
Well, don't ask a question you already know the answer to then, but we're going to go ahead and let town council weigh in on this. Well, that's why I just said that. I would like town council to weigh in on whether or not this would apply to 40B.
Oh. Is that Paul?
And if there would be any limits on 40B construction, if this passed and the AG gave it its blessing.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to the previous speakers. It's an honor to be able to address such an important subject as it comes before the meeting. In my 35 years of municipal law practice, I've come across rate of growth bylaws on numerous occasions, and indeed have had the opportunity to litigate the same in the courts of the Commonwealth. I have, with regard to 40B, yeah, that's a layup. This would impose no more restrictions on 40B than anything else we might do. Whatever somebody can do under 40B, they're going to do it. So I think that's your yes answer. With respect to other matters, this should be a zoning bylaw, not a general bylaw. As the speaker, the proponent quite rightly focused on the necessity of having a proper legal framework, and as the proponent testified to you, in 2010, this town meeting adopted a rate of growth zoning bylaw that imposed limits on the number of building permits that could be issued. Please note that this is not, as has been suggested, a simple reauthorization of the previous zoning bylaw. This is a general bylaw. You want a zoning bylaw for at least two reasons. One, the general sense that this intensely regulates the use of property in town. I'm not saying that is a good or a bad thing. I'm just telling you that there is a legal framework for this to be done. And I believe that legal framework involves zoning. Why do you want to go through the zoning process? Because it involves the preparation of an article, of a bylaw, that goes before the planning board, for which hearings are held, at which questions are asked, at which time refinements are made in the proposal so that what comes through to the floor for you to vote on has been carefully vetted. That careful vetting is very important because what we're talking about here is not a general sense of good or bad. We're talking about private property rights, and private property rights in this country are important. We are able to regulate private property rights, but there's a way to go about doing it. In this case, because the courts recognize that private property rights are important and are protected, it requires a showing on the part of he or she or it who would happen to regulate those private property rights. There has to be a good reason for it. There has to be a provable reason for it. One would expect in a rate of growth bylaw that through the hearings there would be a legislative record that would be developed that would show the need for the particular legislation that you're acting on. Now, the most common reason for having a rate of growth bylaw is because the community that is considering it is under considerable stress due to demands placed on its infrastructure. Water, sewer, schools, fire equipment, police equipment, all the sorts of things that government bundles up and provides for you. And so when you adopt something like this, and when it gets challenged, you will be, or I will be, I suppose, standing in court trying to present evidence that was put before the body that talked about the particular stress that the community was under. For example, why 5 rather than 15? Why 5 rather than 35? How does 5 improve stress on the municipal infrastructure? What is the stress on the municipal infrastructure? And what the court will do is the court will be looking very hard to try to back up whatever your vote is, but the court needs evidence. The court will need studies that were put before you or a planning board. It's going to need testimony. It's going to need statistics. Now, I remember as a kid being able to, you could practically go out and lie in the middle of the street all day and take a nap, and you wouldn't get run over. And I pined for those days. But if all I have to offer to a reviewing court is evidence of my personal preference to be able to take a nap in the middle of the street and not get run over, we lose. And so I ask you to think about whether when you take your vote, and I'm not suggesting this is a good or a bad idea, that's for you to decide, but what I'm asking you to consider is whether the empirical evidence that justifies any particular number, that identifies any particular stress on the municipal infrastructure has been presented to you. And if you can, with a sense of moral certainty, say, yes, I heard that expert testimony, this is a good idea, I see clearly why 5 and not 15, or 5 and not 50, yeah, go for it, because that means I can defend it in court. But if you didn't hear that, then I can't defend it in court. I have an opinion, but I'm not going to tell it to you, because I may still have to defend this in court. And the fellow who's going to challenge me is sitting in the audience. And I don't want him to know exactly what I think, or at least I don't want him to be able to say, yeah, but you said. You're the jury here. Decide whether you've heard the evidence to justify this. And if you haven't, then bring it back and go through what I think is the proper process, which is going through the planning board, having hearings, and developing the evidence. But if you think those births have been satisfied, by all means vote for it. You're the jury. Thank you.
And just to clarify again, at the point of maybe putting too fine a point on it, but can you explain to me what would be the process for something like this? Obviously, if the AG upholds it, it stands. If it doesn't, what is the process of when the AG says, nope, this is not okay? It just evaporates and it's the wild, wild west, or kind of what happens?
Through to you, Mr. Moderator. If this meeting approves this proposal, Madam Clerk, under Chapter 40, Section 32, will send it to our friendly Assistant Attorney Generals sitting over on Main Street in Worcester. And those fine persons will sit down and go through this, and they'll look at the case law, and they'll probably write some letters and say, tell me more about what the justification was, tell me what the sense of urgency was, and then they'll render a decision. Should that decision be in the negative, then this goes away as if it never happened.
Thank you. So that's all the questions we have. Thank you very much. All right, so at this point, we're going to move on to, I believe the questions have been exhausted. It might be getting to the point of somewhat repetitive, so we're going to move into people being able to debate the article. Again, debate still has to be within the scope of what we're talking about here. You've been very patiently waiting since question and answer, so I'm going to give you the first bite at the apple, and the mic is closest to you, so it makes it really easy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Matthew Watsky. I'm here as counsel for Chris Betancourt, principal of New Sherburne LLC. It's an owner of land here in the town, and a number of the residents here as well.
All right, sure. So just to give you we're gonna do a quick parliamentary procedure thing. So if at any time someone doesn't understand what's going on, can't hear the speaker, something like that, you just say point of order and then state what the issue is. So I'm just using this as an example to let everyone know. So there has been a point of order where they're having a hard time hearing you. I am as well. So if you could just bring the mic a little closer and try to speak a little louder, that'd be great.
Glad to speak up. I was concerned about being too loud. So, I'm Matthew Watsky. I'm here as attorney for Chris Betancourt, an owner of land here in town, and a number of residents. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and the attendees here at the special town meeting for voting earlier to allow non-residents to speak. My background, I'm an attorney. I specialize in environmental regulatory, municipal law, and land use. When I review such proposed rules, I look first to the question of legal authority for the proposed rule, and then the consequences of the rule if it were adopted and if it were ultimately approved by the Attorney General's office. With regard to this Article 12 seeking to amend Article 4, it's seeking to add Section 10, placing a limit of 5 building permits for residents issued to any one owner of a parcel that exists today, as well as putting limits on the number of permits that any one person can pull. The phased development zoning bylaw, which was adopted and was to last for 5 years, it's now expired, set a limit of 15 new permits with the opportunity for an applicant to apply for approval of a special permit by the planning board for additional building permits. That would give the planning board the discretion and very specific legal standards for determining whether it was appropriate to grant additional permits or not. The proposed bylaw, by its terms, says that it would supersede all existing bylaws with the exception to where the planning board has already issued the special permit for relief under Section 4.2 of the zoning bylaws, and that relief was granted prior to the effective date of this bylaw. It has absolutely no exceptions built into it. It has no opportunity for exercise of the expertise of the planning board to grant additional permits. It has no exceptions for 55 and over projects. It has no exceptions for an assisted living facility that might be proposed somewhere in town, where by its very nature, projects like that are being constructed as a whole project and are serving far more than simply 5. So by voting for this, assuming it were approved by the Attorney General's office and surviving a legal challenge, you would be blocking any kind of a project that I think the town is likely to be supportive of. The proposed bylaw seeks to insert the new provision, which would be based on your 50% vote here at special town meeting that would, in effect, be an amendment by its very terms. Since it's saying it's superseding the zoning bylaw, it would be an amendment of the zoning bylaw. But zoning bylaws can only legally be revised under the detailed provisions of the Zoning Act, Chapter 48, Section 5, which requires a hearing and a recommendation from the planning board and a 2/3 vote at town meeting. So, in my view, this proposed rule will not pass muster with the AG's office. I think it's patently illegal. But there are questions here that folks asked, why not zoning? I think the answer to why not zoning is because they didn't want the 2/3 vote. Why not have a planning board grant review?
We're not going to get into conjecture of why.
I think you should be asking the questions of the proponent. Why doesn't he want the proposal, the amended bylaw, to be subject to planning board review for grant of permits or grant of a special permit, or to give the planning board the authority to use its discretion and its expertise? Let's talk about unintended consequences, and I've already touched on them. As Town Council Bowen has noted, this proposed rule has no provisions for the applicant to seek relief, and he's indicated what he's held off saying what he thinks the outcome will be at the Attorney General's office. But your unintended consequence is that this bylaw, with its lack of flexibility, will deter projects that the town would otherwise welcome here and support. So thank you for your consideration.
Would anyone else like to speak on Article 12?
My fear is that if we vote this thing, even if it gets knocked out at the Attorney General's office, it's going to put us in a bad position for getting grants. Because one of the things they look for in grants is, are we allowing housing in our communities? Massachusetts is, we do not have enough housing in Massachusetts, that's for sure. And you'll notice that during COVID, they didn't shut down construction because of the fact that there was that we need housing so bad. Right now, we already got an $8 million grant that's helping us out a lot. We're trying to get another one for $4.5 million. The minute they see this, we are not going to get those grants. We're going to be put at the bottom of the line for all of these grants, and we're trying to get them. We're going against every other town trying to get these grants. So I say, don't even, say, well, we can vote for it because the Attorney General's going to knock it down. We don't even have to start sending out, sniffing around that we're even trying to do this. So I hope that people will not vote for this tonight.
Would anyone else like to speak on the article?
Mr. Moderator, a question, if I could?
That would, stopped about 5 minutes ago, but what do you got?
No, forgive me. Tim Bonin, proud member of the Board of Selectmen, Linden Street. Clearly, this is a heady issue, and I want to commend everyone here for the deliberation. But in the spirit of collaboration, I wonder if there's a vehicle which the town, through town meeting, can refer this back to the town executive where it can shepherd it along amongst the various committees that may want to opine.
Refer back to the committee. Bear with me 1 second.
I move to refer the proposal to the executive branch for further study. That's an amending motion. It would take priority. If people vote by majority, vote on that, it comes to the motion, and then you vote on it as a main motion if it passes. Someone could just say so moved.
I'm still working on the bylaw here.
Sorry.
I'm going to take 5 minutes, so talk amongst yourselves. All right, if everyone can be seated, we appreciate your patience. We try to be right more than expedient, but also expedient. So there is you have the floor, and I understand you would like to propose an amendment to Article 12. Mr. Bonin.
Certainly, if it's an appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to amend Article 12 to refer back to the town's executive committee as well as the town's various committees. Can't read my writing.
Didn't you go to St. John's? Come on.
Yeah, and the various committees regarding the matter brought forth in the original article.
Okay. Motion has been made. Is there a second? Is there a 16th? Motion been made and seconded. You have the floor. If you'd like to give a proponent speech on why you would like this amendment.
Well, I wasn't planning on this, but I would say it is a heady issue. Clearly, there's interests on all sides, and I think the only thing proper to do is to work collaboratively, deliberatively, and take this matter up in a thoughtful, conscientious way.
Okay. Any questions on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on the amendment? Okay, almost.
Ryan Walsh, Orange Street. From the executive committee meeting, will those details or notes be released to the public for what you guys find?
Oh, that would be public. Yeah, they'll probably start with the selectmen and then we'll quickly refer to planning and zoning and whoever else council thinks should weigh in.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to a vote on the amendment, which in summary refers this article for further study to the executive committee and appropriate boards. Does that sound like a good summary? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. No. The ayes clearly have it. So we are now working on Article 12 as amended. Would anyone else like to speak to Article 12 as amended? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of Article 12 as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. No. The ayes clearly have it. Article 12 as amended passes. So, as you may have seen today, there are a lot of different boards and committees that make up this town. I encourage you to look at the list, see where your talents may be able to assist the town in continuing to run. And with that, I will accept the motion to adjourn. Motion's been made. Is there a second? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, that really have nothing better to do, say no. Ayes have it, good night.